WTA Tour tennis is on the Grand Slam trail in Paris for the French Open. And another of Europe's great cities, Berlin, is the host for the German Open. We meet the German players trying to emerge from the shadow of a legend. Steffi Graf, and how does she match up with her greatest rival?
Hi, I'm Sanchez Vicario. Welcome to the WTA Tour Tennis.
And when the WTA Tour hit Berlin this year, Arantxa was definitely the main attraction. This historic city has always drawn massive crowds to watch one of the key tournaments in the build-up to the French Open. This year, though, the tournament has to do without the woman who's been champion here for 8 of the last 9 years. Steffi Graf has flu. Would her absence be a loss to the tournament?
No, I don't think so. In Hamburg, without Steffi and Arantxa, there were more than 50,000 people attending in 1 week. Here, maybe the weather is not as good as we would like, but there are still 5,000 people attending every day. In Germany, the people simply want to watch tennis.
Arantxa's here, the world #1, looking for her second title of the year. Mary Pierce, Australian Open champion, seeded 2 here, now a hot property wherever she plays. Jana Novotná was seeded 3 but had to withdraw, like Steffi, because of flu. And although the 4th seed has had a lean time this year, Gabriela Sabatini's charisma still attracts immense crowds. Gabriela's 25th birthday celebrations were cut short in round 3 by Australia's Nicole Bradtke, who went out in the quarterfinals to Natasha Zvereva. Natasha's semi-final opponent, Magdalena Malieva, the conqueror of Mary Pierce. Malieva, the #5 seed, ranked 9 and a winner already this year indoors in Chicago. Zvereva, seeded 7, started in her usual impish manner. As usual, responding to Natasha's antics, but Malieva provided plenty to admire too. And at 5-4, Malieva served at set point. A shot of touch and courage, but Zvereva continued to improvise. Zvereva, as ever, working the crowd. Malieva, meanwhile, was simply working, and very effective it was too. Malieva particularly dangerous, wide to the forehand. A wonderful example here of total commitment. The second set went to a tie-break. Zvereva at 2-6 has to save 4 match points. It had been tough, but Malieva was through to her 3rd final of the year.
6-3, 7-6, 6-4, 7-6.
Her opponent, either the #1 seed or the promising Romanian Irina Spălea, who before her win against Petra Begorov had already put out 2 seeds, Amanda Kurtzer and Mary Jo Fernandez. Spălea, 21 years old, ranked 33, tall, 5'9", that's 1.75 m, powerful, and with tremendous talent with the racket. Spălea reached the 4th round of the Australian Open this year and the final in Jakarta. Sanchez Vicario was finding her a nightmare. The crowd had turned up expecting a formality. What they got was the match of the tournament. Sanchez Vicario was having to play at a very limit just to stay with the Romanian, who was hitting harder and harder. Spalea took the first set 7-5 and went to break up in the second. The alarm bells were ringing for Arantxa, and she responded. Spanish relief as Arantxa took the second set 6-4 and then raised again to a level beyond the Romanian. The Tigress was unstoppable now. 6 games in a row took her to 4-love in the third set. Spalea kept attacking, Arantxa kept countering. And at 5-2, 40-love, she had 3 match points. It had been a tough ordeal, but when she'd had to, she'd played brilliantly. Arantxa through to her third German Open final. Arantxa in her 4th final of 95, looking for a second title to go with the one at Barcelona. Maggie Malieva had beaten her in straight sets in the Federation Cup in Sofia a month before. Then Arantxa was coming back from an ankle injury. This was to be very different.
Spiel, Sanchez Vicario.
Arantxa now with the confidence to go for some extravagant winners. Malieva had to take the match to her. But for the most part, Arantxa was the patient hunter, waiting for a moment of vulnerability and then moving in for the kill.
Spiel, Sanchez Vicario.
A perfectly constructed rally and the ideal volley to finish. The adrenaline was definitely flowing. Now it had to be some shot to beat her.
Spiel, Malieva. Neue Bälle, new balls.
Arantxa was threatening to crush her opponent. She had an answer for everything. Arantxa proving again that a volley really can be a powerful weapon.
No 30, love 30.
Taking the first set 6-4, Arantxa began to run riot, winning the first 4 games of a second. Malieva, though, never let her head drop. She put up a fierce fight, but in the end had been outclassed. Here's Arantxa, 5-1, second set, match point.
Spiel, Sets and Sieg, game, set match. Sanchez Vicario.
At last, at her 5th attempt, Sanchez Vicario had won here in Berlin, the 22nd title of her career. She's called her dog Roland Garros after 2 wins there. Would it be number 3? We didn't have long to wait.
Steffi Graf Graf's win over Brenda Schultz in last year's Berlin final gave her the 8th German Open title of her career. Few players can have dominated an event for so long, but then few players were playing so well so early.
I've always known, or at least I've always believed, that Steffi would become a really great player. You could see it when she was as young as 12. She had the things that other players just don't have: strength of purpose, a capacity for hard work, and most importantly, ambition.
Graf's impact on women's tennis worldwide has been universally acknowledged, but her contribution to the game in her own country has been incalculable.
Steffi Graf has done a great deal for German tennis. Before she came along, women's tennis wasn't very important because Boris Becker was becoming very successful, and everyone was talking about men's tennis. When Steffi Graf arrived, women's tennis received more attention, and if it hadn't been for her, we wouldn't have so many first-class women's tournaments in Germany, like Hamburg, Filderstadt, Essen and Berlin.
For the German players who were to follow her, among them Anke Huber, Barbara Rittner and Sabine Hack, the Graf phenomenon has proved a double-edged sword. For them, more tournaments and more prize money didn't necessarily lead to more recognition.
It was pretty difficult for us other players, for someone like Barbara Rittner or for the others who were coming up and who were also playing very good tennis. We were just never really considered, not even in the newspapers. It was always only Steffi, Steffi. Eventually, though, we got used to it. And now, if we play really well, now we get the success, and that automatically means we get more attention.
I think Steffi Graf has certainly been a role model for the other German players, but in a way she has also overshadowed them. So when she doesn't play, it's a good chance for the up-and-coming young players to prove themselves.
Among Germany's up-and-coming players is Jana Kandar. 18 years old and born in the former East Germany, she's improved dramatically since moving to the West, but resists comparisons with Graf.
You could be the next Steffi Graf for the future. How do you feel about that?
No, I don't think so. First, I should have started much earlier. Second, she'd already had a lot of success at my age, and won who knows how many Grand Slam titles. I don't think you can compare us at all. Our careers have been completely different.
Drawn against Kandar in Berlin's early rounds was Petra Begorov, also identified as a possible heir to Graf. Does she think there are others waiting in the wings?
Yes, I think there are many. In the world rankings, there are 10 German players among the top 100, and I think all of them could make it. Jana Kandar is very good, and Sandra Wechtershäuser has also proved to be a likely contender.
When she was 14, Sandra Wechtershäuser came third in a Find the New Graf competition. 6 years later, have there emerged any more candidates?
I hope so, and I hope to be one of them. This was only my first full tournament on the tour, only won one round, and I don't know whether I can be considered as a future prospect. But I do think that in Kandar and Begorov, we have good players who will certainly get on well.
Steffi, du bist die Beste.
No arguments there, but how far will German tennis have progressed when she's no longer the best and decides to retire from the game for good?
It'll certainly be the end of an era, but it won't be the end of tennis. I'm convinced that new young players will emerge, who will achieve very good results. Maybe there won't be a new Steffi Graf, but there certainly will be very successful players, and the interest in tennis will remain very high.
From the home of sport.
For the second Grand Slam of the year. This year, the French with a real hope of capturing the women's crown for the first time since Françoise Dürr in '67. Mary Pierce, runner-up last year, now a major winner herself in Australia. But Conchita Martinez had won all her last 4 clay court tournaments. And despite her back injury, Steffi was unbeaten in '95. Arantxa in good nick too. Her thoughts on her rivals?
I don't think you can compare us. Each one of us is different. But at the moment, we're all playing our very best tennis, so that we can be in the best possible shape for Roland Garros.
And French hearts sank when Pierce went out in the fourth round to the inspired Croat Iva Maioli. Maioli, playing her best match in the big time, dropped just 5 games in a truly remarkable display. Sanchez Vicario had made it through to the final without dropping a set, even against Maioli's conqueror Kimiko Date. But the other semi between Martinez, unbeaten in 26 matches, and the 3-times champion Graf was the one everyone was waiting for. It was a match full of tension and swings. At one stage, Martinez looked to be heading for victory. But just as Steffi seemed to be tottering on the brink, she pulled herself together. Steffi through to her 7th French Open final. The final between the numbers 1 and 2 seeds. It was a match full of quite staggering tennis. Graf took the first set 7-5. Sanchez Vicario, playing perhaps the finest tennis of her career, levelled up 6-4. But she'd given her all. The third set was a tidal wave for the German. And at 5-love, she had championship point. Her 4th French title, her 16th Grand Slam, and she was back where she belonged, at number 1. Let's have a look at the other winners this month. Ludmila Richterova is triumphant in the inaugural British Clay Court Championships. Lindsay Davenport picks up her first title of the year in Strasbourg. And the world doubles champions are Neuland and McGrath. In the singles rankings, Huber is back in the top 10. Maggie Malieva, despite her final in Berlin, drops to number 9. Gabriela stays down at 8. Lindsay Davenport drops to 7. A French Open semi-final moves Kimiko Date up to 6. There's no change for Novotná. Mary Pierce, disappointed in France, moves out of the top 3. So Conchita moves back in. Arantxa and Steffi swap positions yet again. So the French champion is back at the top of the world.
Number 1 is the ambition of every player, but in the last 2 years, 2 people have had a monopoly on that position. Until February, it was Graf all the way, but since then, she and Sanchez Vicario have swapped places at the top 6 times. This month it's Steffi, next month it could be Arantxa again. It's a rivalry they're inevitably comparing with the very best. But what do the experts think?
See, in women's tennis it's tough because the comparison's always going to be Martina and Chrissy. And that's a very special rivalry that probably comes around once every 50 or 100 years. So let's sort of knock those 2 out and just think about these 2 players who right now are so close in the rankings that they're doing a lot of flip-flopping. It's kind of like the big, powerful Graf against the scrappy, feisty, determined Sanchez Vicario, and that's kind of the main theme when they play. I think Steffi has the bigger game and she has the higher potential to play just a more devastating kind of game. Arantxa, you can play Arantxa and sort of feel like you're in the match. You might still lose easily because she doesn't miss much, whereas against Graf, the match is sometimes just taken out of your hands.
In the 7 years the 2 have been playing each other, Graf's on top overall. She's beaten Sanchez Vicario 24 times out of 32. But then Steffi's been around 4 years longer, and in that time she's played the very best.
I mean, Steffi Graf has enjoyed great rivalries with a bunch of terrific women tennis players. I mean, she was around for Chris. She was around for Martina. Graf had a terrific rivalry with Sabatini. And then she had, unfortunately, a rivalry with Monica Seles that was cut short. In the absence of Seles, the Arantxa-Graf rivalry is quite good because Arantxa knows how to beat Graf, and she deserves to be thought of in the same sentence with Steffi Graf as one of the best.
But how far are they from being thought of in the same sentence as Navratilova and Evert? The two friends were also two rivals who fought some epic battles. Wimbledon, where they played each other 9 times, was one of the greatest stages of all for them. Among their memorable confrontations, this in 1979.
There will never be a finer rivalry than Martina and Chris. That was a great rivalry. It lasted a very, very long time. They played 70 matches. Arantxa and Steffi Graf is a compelling rivalry because some of the elements are the same. I mean, Arantxa is basically in the role of Chris Evert in that one. You know, she's smaller physically and she hasn't the same God-kissed gifts of Steffi Graf, but her good fighting spirit has allowed her to beat Steffi Graf on a number of very big occasions.
Quiet, please. The first occasion was a Grand Slam final, the French Open in 1989. And the most recent victory, another Grand Slam, the US Open at Flushing Meadow in 94.
1-6, 7-5, 6-4.
And Sanchez Vicario's catching up. She's won 3 of their last 5 meetings. And she knows the German can feel her breathing down her neck.
Every time she plays me, it's like she has something against me. She always plays his best. I don't know what happened, but I don't think she'll ask me.
So is the power base shifting to Spain? Here's what a former men's champion thinks.
Over the last 12 months, I think that Arantxa Sanchez Vicario has played a lot better tennis. I would like to include Monica Seles in that rivalry. I think that's needed, but I do think that anything like that, any rivalry in the sport, is great for the game.
Of course, everyone's looking forward to welcoming Monica Seles back to the tour. It's more than 2 years since the stabbing, which put one of the world's most exciting stars out of the game, and she's still not announced her return to competitive tennis. But the good news is that she'll play an exhibition match at the end of July against one of the best ever, Martina Navratilova. Now let's hope it won't be too long before Monica's challenging for that #1 spot again. Until next month, goodbye.